Good evening. This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. It's Tuesday night. It means it's Ben night. Good evening, Ben.
Hey, John. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Great to be back and ready to do a full show tonight.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we've been traveling and here and there. Yeah, well, let's talk about that in just a second. First off, we need to see our shirt of the week. Let's see what you got for us. The resistance is futile right there.
Resistance is futile. Just watch.
Nice.
You can't resist us.
Yeah, every week you've got to watch. So last week, you were at Armed DJs down in Greenville, am I correct?
You got it. Greenville, Tennessee.
Nice. How were the people? How was the weather? Good time?
You know, I keep saying it so many times. The people are fantastic. I really liked the people at that show. The weather, it was warm. I enjoyed it. It was hot and humid and all the things that I hope for out of Tennessee. So it didn't disappoint.
Great. And you guys had 2 days of seminars and time to hang out and just get to, spend some good time with other DJs.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
A lot of quality time. I don't know if you heard about the cold water challenge that I got called out on.
No. Tell me more about this. Sounds interesting but shrivelly.
Well, not so much. Not when it's 90 degrees in Tennessee. I don't get out much. I think, being a geek, that probably doesn't surprise people. But I wasn't aware of this deal where, apparently your friends call you out and you have 24 hours to have your other friends pour cold water on you. As any good friend would. And so we watched, I helped. My friend Brandon Lindsay he got his. And apparently he called out Mitch Taylor, who called out me. And if you don't do it within 24 hours, you have to donate $100 to a just cause. And, obviously I'm a big fan of donating to, causes anyway. But I'm not the kind of guy to turn down a dare either. So I said, you know what? Hey, the time to do this is when it's 90 degrees outside. So we said, all right, Ben will do his cold water challenge. Well, if you don't know anything about Robbie Britton, just know this. He's the kind of guy that can make a dunk tank materialize in minutes.
Yes, so, he could.
And, I go up to say my little 5 minutes on the stage as the presenting sponsor of Armed DJs, and Robbie says, "Oh, by the way, we have a dunk tank right outside waiting for you."
Oh, you're kidding.
So, and they took some bids on who got to throw the softballs to send me into the Tennessee bathwater, and Drax took the first couple shots. He tells me he missed on purpose. He's excited that I'm going to be at the Las Vegas DJ show, and he tells me he missed on purpose. Mike Jones, my brother Mike Jones, good friend of mine, he had no problem hitting that target the first time.
Yeah, he brought the fastball and took you down.
He gave me a look, and I knew I was getting wet, and the ball was gone, and I was in the tank.
No.
That was just how it went down. So, raise some money for homeless youth, and that's what it's all about.
Nice. Great. So
that's all Armed DJs was.
That was a good time for you. Well, last week while you were down in Greenville, we went out to Las Vegas for the Infocomm show, and boy, that was my first time at Infocomm. And
I got the better end of the deal.
You did because it was 100 and change out there. The only thing that was really interesting or that was cool about the trip, of course, was all the new stuff that they have out there.
Yes.
Oh my!
Yep.
You're seeing things, and for those who are in the industry, there's NAMM in winter that shows a lot of stuff. Infocomm's now showing more new stuff, and then of course in the fall we've got late fall, early winter, what have you. We have LDI, which is also lighting new stuff, but video.
And Infocomm really is. NAMM is focused on the music retailer, and Infocomm is really the best show for what we do. As our core business, which is systems integration, which is, installed systems and that sort of thing. Infocomm is really the show for that. Yeah. And I didn't really make a deal out of it at Armed DJs, but I kind of wonder if people put two and two together and said, wait, Ben missed Infocomm to be at Armed DJs. And I want them to feel good about that. But honestly, it was kind of selfish because I knew I was going to have a lot more fun at Armed DJs. And, I have a lot of engineering friends that were at Infocomm, and they did the groundwork for me. And so I was able to go get wet.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, when you're talking networking and in the church house of worship design or college, whatever, boy, that was way in many ways way over my head with all the different technology out there. And that'll bring us to tonight's talk a little bit, because I wanted to ask some questions and kind of look at the transcending world of video, which of course Infocomm, I think, had like half of one hall almost completely dedicated to the video world. So
Oh, no question. Video is a rapidly changing frontier.
yeah, it has changed. So Ben, let's just jump into some video things. Let's start off. One of the things, the big topics out there was 4K. So let's talk a little bit about what that is, and then you kind of tie it into what we know, currently.
Well, here's a few things you should know about 4K. First of all, it's not really that new. It is and it isn't, and I kind of want to just sort of make the point of there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
On my way to Armed DJs, I met up with a friend in Nashville who's a successful touring artist, and was remembering the days when they were happy to get a gig even if they didn't get paid, and you earn that the hard way. And 4K has been around a lot longer than people might think. There were 4K devices being released in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004. 4K devices were available. So it's been around. I mean, we'd think 11 years in technology terms is a long time, but it takes some time for these things to become mainstream. And of course, you probably already heard about things like 8K.
Yeah.
We're seeing a company now that says they can develop 18K, which, to put that in terms that photographers could wrap their head around, maybe in the digital world, that's something like 200 megapixels at 60 frames per second. That's a crazy amount of data. Wow. But we're really getting ahead of ourselves. So let's go back to 4K.
Yeah.
First of all, 4K isn't really 4K. I mean, there's a couple different 4Ks. It's kind of a nifty, clever term that can mean a couple different things.
Okay.
That we might say 4K, but all 4K is not created equal. There's kind of the accepted consumer resolution of 4K, which is 3840 by 2160. That's something also we would call UHDTV. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. I'm gonna move it off the table. ADHD's going crazy again.
Yeah, exactly. Must look.
I gotta look at that Facebook message. I gotta respond. So consumer 4K would be like 3840 by 2160, or UHD TV, ultra high definition television. We could also say it's the same as like 2160p. Which we probably heard, things like 1080p,
yep.
1080 progressive scan. Okay.
Well, Ben, let's go, just because, you and I like visuals. Let's pop up that first visual that was a 1080p, as long as you're there.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's a good idea. Let's do this.
Let's pop that up. So now it's that video, or that visual is to our left as we're oriented on a screen. So.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see it, but these are the slides that
This is the slide. Yep. This is the one that goes from
Okay.
640. And it shows the difference to 640 on up to the 1080p.
Okay. Yeah. So what you're seeing is basically the amount of information contained in a video image. And this is a slide from a PowerPoint I made a couple of years ago on obviously discussing video. And what you can see is how much more information is in, 720 or 1080 as opposed to, 480 and that sort of thing. And what that means is more pixels or more dots of information, and thus we perceive it to have much greater detail. Well, it does have much greater detail, I guess.
And the number, the 720 or 1080, is based on a vertical measurement.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we're going to go here in a minute. It's a really, might as well do it now. With 720 and 1080, we're talking about the visual, and I kind of alluded to it a minute ago when I said that 4K is 2160.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, for whatever reason, we decided to start measuring things horizontally.
Let me pop that graphic up here.
Yeah, so let's bring up the 4K graphic.
There we go.
Okay, that's up.
Yep. So we're seeing all the same graphic that we were seeing before, but now you're seeing that in the small the lower left
Yeah.
corner. That's
Well, so yeah,
incredible.
you can see, how much more information is in 4K as opposed to 1080. But notably, 1080, like you said, is pixels vertically, whereas 4K in the consumer world is 3840 horizontally. In the pro world, it's 4096, by the way. So that's what I mean. 3840 isn't really quite 4K, but
Interesting.
4096 is. But in either case, the vertical measurement remains 2160. So we could call it 2160p, but I guess 4K just sounds way cooler. So we're going with 4K now. We talked about 18K in terms of 200 megapixels at 60 frames per second. 1080p would be like 2.1 megapixels. Just to kind of perspectivize that.
Sure.
Now I'm kind of jumping all over. My ADHD's going crazy. I'm sorry, but basically what we're talking about is a lot more video information contained in the frame, and thusly in the display. The ability to see the individual blades of grass on a football field. I don't know that. But really ultra fine detail in a image. I don't mean to jump ahead, so I'll just kind of hang it out there. And if you want to go down this, trail a little further, the other thing that is attached to that is the ability to get that information from point A to point B.
Sure.
We're talking about much greater processing power, much bigger pipelines necessary to send that information from point A to point B, because there's a lot more information. And you can see that in the 4K versus 1080, that you're basically talking about the information of 4 1080 screens in one 4K screen.
And I think that information, actually, my son who's kind of a techie young man, was there, and when he was talking to the guys with the 8K screen, they were actually making reference to, and of course this is kind of jumping around also, that HDMI
dizzy tonight.
exactly, that HDMI may not have the ability to, if I'm remembering Matthew's talking about this, that HDMI may not have the ability to carry that much data. Could that be right? That I heard him right?
Well, I don't know that anybody said it can't yet. Certainly we're going to find the breaking point for HDMI, and we've already found the breaking point for some of the older technologies. The term high def, really encompasses even, now it wouldn't be accurate to say VGA, but there's, UXGA and other VGA resolutions, that would have a similar pixel count. And we've actually been able to send those over coaxial cable, your old, cable.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what they'll find. HDMI has the ability to carry Ethernet on board, and it's a pretty robust and capable signal. But I wouldn't be the guy to tell you if it can or can't.
Yeah. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
One of the ways that we get now, HDMI does have a fairly short distance, and that makes it difficult for professionals like DJs who are using remote screens, or us when we're installing it. And one of the things we do is we use extenders. Now this one is a VGA, UXGA, WXGA, whatever. This one's a UTP extender, which means unshielded twisted pair. And we basically take a Cat5 cable and plug our VGA in here and a Cat5 in here. It's an active device, and we can send that, now close to 1,000 feet or more. There's some that this one here allows us also to take and send not only to 4 different displays, and we have 4 different displays here, but also to embed RS-232 and other control languages on board and send that. And we have similar capabilities for HDMI rather than just your standard HDMI cable. We now have these devices here where the HDMI goes in there and our UTP goes there. This one here actually is a base T device. And what base T means is Ethernet, basically. Mm-hmm. T is for twisted pair, just like the UTP. And we have 10 base, 100 base, gigabit. And that's what this is saying, is that it takes that HDMI and then turns it into Ethernet, basically, and sends it over a base T topology. And now, of course, you're limited on copper to 100 meters, 328 feet. But that's a lot farther than you can go with a HDMI cable.
Yeah.
And really, the next the next place to go is fiber. Plastic optical fiber or glass optical fiber obviously lifts restrictions on length, to some degree. And with glass, it's miles.
Wow.
So and it can carry a great deal more information. So I think that's where you will see next is we'll simply use light to send this signal. When HDMI is no longer capable.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be something beyond that. I mean, we've just begun to. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I forget. We talked about Moore's law and the charting the progress of technology. In some ways, we're right where people thought we might be. Dick Tracy and his wristwatch, and the Apple patented or trademarked the name iWatch. Those sorts of things are coming out. But on the other hand, we're so far ahead. If you go back and look at Space Odyssey 2001, and we don't have computers like HAL, but we have technologies they just didn't comprehend. Nanotechnologies and things like that. And anyway, the punchline to all that is, I'm not worried about the limitations of any protocol or any device because we'll just find something else.
Yeah, there'll be a workaround in one shape or form.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. We're accelerating the pace of technological advancement. We're not slowing down.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Let's jump over now. So we talked a little bit about that higher definition, higher resolution. Now they were saying a lot of the companies were showing or talking about screens that they're doing something different with screens today due to these higher definition projectors and things. Kind of take us through the history of screens and how they have evolved, if you could.
Well, we'll make it a short history, as if anybody believes I'll really do that. But I still see people who want to just shine an image on a white wall. Of course, we know that white paint basically is the absence of pigments. It's going to reflect back most of the spectral information of light. In other words, pretty much what you shine at, it's what you're going to see. But a white wall is a terrible, terrible screen, and it's really becoming more and more and more important with those resolutions to have good screen quality, something that's designed to capture the image and either reflect it back to you in the case of a front projection screen or capture it from the rear and allow you to see the image clearly in high definition. And, so we look at some of the various technologies of screens over the years. Beaded glass would be a horrible screen now. It would just look so bad, I think. And we've moved into matte white, and now they have high gain technologies, things that help improve contrast and that sort of thing, but also to make sure that the screen itself is smooth enough that it allows you to reflect back those increasing number of pixels, in an area. You can see. If you go up close to a projector, particularly one that's a few years old, you can actually see the pixels, the little squares of information, from the DLP or whatever. As those squares get smaller, the screen has to be able to send those back to our eye convincingly. So there's your short history of screens. They're just getting better and better at reflecting back these high-resolution images. Yeah,
that was the one particular company was advertising their 4K 4K screens and went and looked. I mean, that was for a white screen. It was literally as smooth as glass. I mean, she held it up and it was like, wow, not a dimple, wrinkle, nothing. I mean, it was incredible. And I've got some of the older screens that we bought back in the 90s. And it looks like someone took some spackle on the screen comparatively.
Well, screen is really important. The screen is really important to the quality of the overall image. There's no doubt about it. And in fact, I've got my whiteboard app, so I'm just going to quick draw something here. Okay, yeah. So you know what? I want to take this to my whiteboard real quick here, and let's. Okay, so we got our screen here, and we've got our room full of stick people.
If I can recognize what song this might be, what album art this would be, do I get a prize?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one this time.
Sure. Why not? And we put a projector up here. We want an angular reflection that brings the image, right back to our people where they're sitting.
Okay.
But now if we move our projector, and we put it down here, if we use that same reflection, it's not ideal at all. So what we want instead maybe is something like this. So that's important. Also, for things like ambient light, if we have a lot of ambient light in the room, maybe our projection is coming from the rear. And that's okay because ambient light is, not an issue at that point. The image is still coming through on the screen crisply and clearly to our people that are watching whatever it is we're presenting on the video. So anyway, pros and cons. There's lots of different things, with these screens.
So now, Ben, viewing angle is one thing. Now, I heard a lot of people talking about is contrast. How does contrast work in this whole video viewing world?
Well, contrast, by definition, is the difference between the light and the dark parts of the image. And the more difference we have between the light and the dark, the higher the contrast ratio. And probably the better the image.
Okay.
Obviously we could artificially take the contrast off the charts, and then it would look, maybe artistic to somebody, but it wouldn't look like video.
Sure.
But what we want is definition and depth and vividness of color.
Let's go to that slide. You have a slide here for us.
This would be a really good place for that other slide I sent you.
This is the single screen where we've got, looks like contrast on the right and kind of washed out on the left.
Yeah, that's a really good example right there. What you're seeing, that image, by the way, I have to say this legally probably, is courtesy of Daylight Screens, and they do make some awesome screens. We're glad to represent them. They've been in business for, 500 years or something. They've been around a while. since projectors had candles in them,
Yep. They were coming across on the Mayflower. It was great.
That's right. Yeah, that's what people watched on the Santa Maria. Anyway, so that image, courtesy of Daylight, I used it in my presentation a couple years ago. And what you see is low contrast, where it's kind of gray. Just the difference between the lights and the darks and the colors is kind of, it's not really pronounced. On the other side, you're seeing a very sharp contrast. And so two different ways, we'll talk about that this can be accomplished. One is with a higher contrast ratio in your projector, that the projector is capable of darker darks and or whiter whites, and both are important. Projectors have a really hard time making a black, actually, sometimes, depending on now we're getting into the technology of how a projector works, and there's different ways, and we just don't have enough time in the show for that today.
Yep.
With DLP and all the other fun things that they can, the light engines and that sort of thing. But anyway, the other way is to use a high contrast screen. And you probably saw some of these. They're kind of silver tinted screens or gray tinted screens. That screen is going to, by nature, it's darker, and it's going to absorb more of the light and thus make a darker black. And so a high contrast projector is going to look even better because your whites are going to be whiter and your blacks are going to be blacker, and the overall contrast is going to look something more like what you see on the right.
Interesting.
Beyond that, there's some tricks that the industry does. You probably noticed that every projector screen, for the most part, has a black border around it.
Yep. Let me flip to this image, and I want to get that one up. Okay, we're good.
And that's just good theater because it's just a visual optical illusion. If you look at the two images that you see on the slide, they are identical. Yet the one with the black border around it appears to have more contrast.
Yeah.
That's just an optical illusion working in our favor. It's just good engineering right there.
Interesting. Yeah, you'd swear by looking at it that there was a substantial difference in the two.
Yeah, so different things like that we can do to, just improve the perceived quality of the image and the actual quality of the image.
Yeah. Very cool. One of the things we've talked about in past shows, we've talked about wire, cable, and the quality thereof. Does HDMI, the digital wires such as that, is there a difference in does the quality of the wires make a difference in that world too?
Absolutely. I can say that firsthand, unequivocally, that we have used inexpensive HDMI cables. Maybe you're out of town on a project in a pinch. You got to go to the discount store and grab one. And first of all, sometimes you just have failures out of the box. The quality control just isn't there.
Yeah.
But there are times where, just not kidding, you unplug the brand X cable and you plug in the other cable and it miraculously starts working, particularly over length. But yeah, long and the short of it, I've cut open dozens of different HDMI cables because that's just the kind of guy I am. You don't know. Go watch our episode on wires and you'll know that I just love to cut wires open.
Or the episode on speakers where you love to have speakers cut open, or the.
I'm kind of obsessed with taking things apart, I guess.
Yes.
My mom used to get after me all the time. She's kind of given up now, but she used to get after me all the time. She's like, "Can't you leave well enough alone?"
No.
That's what my mom looked like, by the way. Can't you leave well enough alone?
Oh, great. We're going to have mom hate mail next week. That'll be great. So if you want hate mail, send hashtag NLFXBen.
Yeah. Hashtag Ben's mom. Yeah. No, my mom's fantastic, and it's interesting, that she works with early childhood development, and we've had some of these discussions about, how children are curious by nature, and we should all be more like children, and I think, like I said, she's sort of started to embrace what I do now, and I think she's glad that I was a curious person, but. She said, "Can't you leave well enough alone?" And I said, "Mom, nothing was ever improved by leaving well enough alone. I got to know how this works." There was one time though that my dad came home after he was literally working 3 jobs, and he came home dog tired after one of his jobs, and I was curious about the door handle and how it worked, so I'd taken it apart from the inside. He couldn't get in the house.
Oh, that would not be cool.
Yeah, that was one of those times. Maybe they weren't quite so. They weren't like, "Oh, that's cute." They're a little upset.
I need to get in and go to the bathroom.
Yes, he got over it, and we still. We're pretty close. So.
Oh, funny, good stuff. One last thing I want to share that I saw, Ben, probably one of the coolest thing video wise is there's a couple of companies out there that have wireless HDMI capability to handle a 1080p signal wirelessly with 0 latency, which was actually kind of a cool thing that I didn't know existed until Infocomm this year.
Yeah, well, okay. I've actually got one sitting just a couple feet to my left, just out of reach here. I'll say this, though. There is no such thing as 0 latency. I have one in my house, too, by the way. But I'll say there is no such thing as 0 latency. That's just impossible. Even light has latency. The speed of light at 300 million meters per second is incredibly fast. Maybe the universe's speed limit. We don't know. Mm-hmm. 186,000 miles per second for those who don't like meters. But in the spirit of the World Cup, we're just going to go with the metric system. But it's still, we're seeing, there's still light and energy from, the initial expansion of the universe out there. It still takes time for the light from our sun to get to us. There is nothing that's instant. Yeah. All right. Setting that aside.
You took a real simple, door opening there for you, and you made it really difficult. You know that.
That's how I roll. Yeah. Tell my mom, still up to my old tricks. But the other thing is, we're talking about a lot of information that we're trying to send wirelessly. And just as we talked about the pipeline for wires, I have yet to see a wireless HDMI system work well. Mm-hmm. And, if some of the vendors are watching this, I guess consider this an open challenge. I'll take the Pepsi challenge. Sponsored by Pepsi? Woo! Not really. But if they want to send money, no, okay. So, send me one. I'd love to try it out. Prove me wrong. But the ones I've tried, and that's why I'm not going to put it on camera, is I don't want to shame anybody. Right. It's not been flawless. There's degrees of good, and somebody is probably getting close to perfecting it. Maybe it's out there. I'd love to see it. So, send this on to them and tell them to send it to me, and I'll take it apart.
Take it apart.
I will.
No, really. He will.
Not gonna lie.
He's got screwdrivers and soldering irons. He'll take it apart.
I've set amplifiers on fire when manufacturers tell me their amps can't be blown. I said, we'll see.
Challenge accepted.
That's right. Hey, you know what? When my customers count on me for an answer, I want it to be a real answer. I don't want to just sell them the smoke. I want to, no pun intended there.
Yeah, you want to make the smoke for them.
Yeah, I want to make the smoke. Tell them what it took to make the smoke come out of the
Oh,
magic smoke.
oh, really? No, honey, I'm burning this part of the house down for my customers.
Yes, exactly. Well, fortunately, I have I come down to the NLFX headquarters, and our tech facility is fairly fireproof now.
by, by necessity, yes. Oh, we Ben Stowe proofed that wing of the building. Go over there, please.
Yeah, our lead technician's out of town. He's in Orlando right now on a project, and he might come back to some more scorch marks.
Nice.
Turn me loose. But that's where things like this, I think, running a Cat5 cable is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I understand wireless is good. I like wireless. We talked about wireless speakers. That video is suddenly getting some new life, the one we shot at the DJ Expo last year. And wireless is a great thing when it works, but I'm just not yet a fan of wireless HDMI until somebody makes me a believer of it.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep our eyes open. You never know when as you were talking technology advances, it could be something that comes out tomorrow and we'd all be saying, wow, how did we ever live without it?
I think it will too, and maybe it's out and I just haven't caught on. But I'm a careful skeptic. I think my customers know that I really stand behind what I recommend, and there's nothing I'm willing to just put my name on quite yet.
Yeah.
And thus, when I do, they'll know that it's legit. That it's earned that. So.
Yeah,
that's actually why the unit's in my house. Is who could be a better guinea pig than my wife and kids? Because believe me, when the cartoons aren't coming in, I know. I hear about it. Talk about a focus group.
They'll be on your case real quick. Good stuff. Well, Ben, we getting close to a half an hour here. We should wrap things up. Thank you much. Learned a lot about video things tonight. And if anyone's got any questions, we've got the little, go to Twitter and use the @ NLFXBen. Send Ben a question, or you can use a hashtag. Send him a question, send him a thought, send him some love, send him a T-shirt. He could use.
Yeah, we're running out of T-shirts.
He could use a T-shirt. If you've got something you want to have him show that, send it on over.
I do want to send a shout out to my friend Richard in Vermont, because he did send a shirt, and he's been patiently waiting for me to model it for him. Well, that sounded kind of weird, but you know what I mean.
It sounded a little bit, yeah.
Sorry, Richard. I do look good in a shirt. I mean, look at me, But.
Yeah, you would look fabulous, and don't take that the wrong way or make that sound weird, in any way, shape, or form. I think it's about time. I think we're done.
Yeah. Well, so Richard, I just want you to know that John is going to be making his way to my hometown, and the video that the topic you asked about is going to be easier to shoot, and we're both in the same room, and I'm holding that shirt for them. So I appreciate it. I've not worn the shirt yet, so I'm saving it just for that.
Should be a good. I'm looking forward to that. We'll be getting that hopefully here in a couple of weeks.
It's a very cool shirt, by the way. I can't wait for you to see it. I'm going to take it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Well, Ben, thank you very much. And we are a wrap for tonight. This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. Good night.